If you're trying to conceive and feeling overwhelmed with fertility advice, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Don't Tell Me to Relax, your fertility podcast and antidote to unhelpful fertility information. I'm Hannah, a fertility acupuncturist, teacher and campaigner for better fertility education. This podcast aims to empower and inform you about your menstrual cycle and fertility. It's basically all that information you didn't get in sex ed at school, with the aim of improving your understanding of your reproductive health and optimizing your fertility. Good evening, everybody. Today I am joined by Dr. Amanda Tozer, who is Clinical Director. What's your title?
Yeah, so I'm one of the fertility specialists at ARIA and co-director of the company.
Great. So I'm joined today by Amanda, and we are going to be talking all about trying to conceive over 40, because it is something that we see a lot in our clinic, and I'm sure it is something that you see a lot in your clinic, Amanda. And I just thought it would be really good to hear your perspective on things, because obviously we get a lot of questions where people come into us and they say, what can I do? What are my options? And so it really led me to kind of think about doing this as a whole podcast episode. But before we start in that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and areas of specialism?
Yeah, so my basic training, of course, is in obstetrics and gynecology. And then I subspecialized in reproductive medicine, and I started my subspecialty training back in 1997. So I've been doing fertility in all its forms for a long, long time. And actually, it's a great field to be in because it has changed unbelievably over those years, not least, in lab techniques and all sorts of things that have developed. Scanning, oh my gosh, the change in scanning abilities has changed. So it's an ever developing area that I've really, really, really enjoyed. But I have spent all my time just really doing fertility and stopped really doing any obstetrics back in 2004 and just concentrated on reproductive medicine. So, yeah, I've been doing this a long time and still find it really enjoyable.
Great. And I mean, we have quite a few patients in our clinic who go to your clinic who always give us really, really good feedback about really good care.
Yeah.
So tell us, let's talk a bit about trying to conceive over 40. So is it true, and do you see this, that there are more and more people who are wanting to either start their family or have a second child over the age of 40? Is this something through your years that you have seen change?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and in a way, of course, yes, I've seen more people over the age of 40, and of course, predominantly when I left the NHS. So I suppose I'm seeing quite a biased group in a way because a lot of patients who are below 40 are receiving or having treatment in the NHS. And when I was in the NHS at Barts Hospital, of course, most of the patients we saw then were under 40 because that's what they were funded for. Having said that, we did, of course, treat patients over the age of 40. And I can remember back in 97 looking at the average age of IVF patients that we treated, and that was 32.
Wow.
Just before I left Bart, so some years after, and I was there for about 18 years, the average age actually was 36. So even within that group of patients up to 40, the average age in itself had changed. Now, in the private sector, extremely different. And of course, I would say that more than 50% of patients I see now are 40 or over. So this has become a big part of, a big group of patients that we are dealing with to try and maximize outcome. But of course, being 40 comes with that lots of potential problems. And of course, we all know that fertility rates decline naturally with age, and they certainly do with fertility treatments.
Mm. And why do you think, I didn't realize it was 50%? That is
Yeah.
phenomenal. Gosh.
Yeah. And I think, we talk a lot about, women are leaving having their careers and
Mm,
starting late. Actually, my own experience, and it's the same because of dealing with patients who want to egg freeze, is actually people don't meet people till they're older. It's
mm,
not so much they've been sitting around, doing their busy with their careers. They actually don't meet people. And so they suddenly meet somebody, in their late 30s. And of course, you're not going to just jump and have a baby with the first person that you meet. You want to get to know that person and form a relationship. And then suddenly you find yourself in your 40s
mm,
then thinking about having a baby. And,
mm,
women don't feel in their 40s these days. Women
mm,
who are in their 40s feel like they're in their 30s, and I think overall people are generally healthier, et cetera, et cetera. And suddenly then find that they're either, they're not conceiving, they realize they're getting older, and you might be 30, you might try for 2 years, or what when you're in your 40s, you're not going to leave it 2 years. So we're probably seeing people in their 40s who've been trying for less time. And I think that's
mm.
appropriate. They need to come sooner than later. But yes, we have a huge group of patients in their 40s.
And so what are do you have any statistics? I know your clinic
Mm,
is quite new, but
yeah.
on average, kind of across the
Mm,
board, what are
yeah.
the chances of
Yeah.
conceiving over 40?
So, of course, Hannah, as with a lot of at most ages, chance of conception is mostly down to the age of the egg. Not
Mm,
not totally, but mostly down to the age of the egg. And the reason being, of course, is women are born with all the eggs we're ever going to have. They age with us. And older eggs are just not as good at creating embryos that are chromosomally normal. So, of course, most of them don't implant, negative test, but some will implant, and there are higher rates of miscarriage. So with age, sadly, comes aging of eggs, and that is, that essentially is the biggest problem. So, at 40, we could say, and we know from stats of screening embryos for chromosomal abnormality, probably about 25, maybe as high as 30% of embryos might be chromosomally normal. And indeed, when you're looking at, fertility rates from IVF treatment, success rates at about 40 or about 25% plus. And
mm,
that does decline with age. So, by the time you've hit sort of, 42, that's probably about sort of 10 to 12% and so on. So there is a rapid fall off, unfortunately, in chance of conception, but it is predominantly age of egg related. And hence, of course, why egg donation ultimately is a highly successful treatment, because the eggs are just younger, you
mm,
know. We
mm,
are really lucky as women in a way that uteruses don't age, so they're good to go.
mm,
It's just
mm.
our eggs, unfortunately.
And obviously the title of this podcast is over 40, but I have
Mm,
heard there is a difference between 40 to 42 and then 42 plus. Is that, can you
yeah,
explain a little bit more about
yeah,
that?
and of course, again, you know, everything gets bundled into age ranges. Even the
Mm,
HFEA publish in age ranges, and we tend to do that. And we tend to publish in age ranges in some ways because we're dealing with smaller numbers, so we want to create better statistics. But it is still all down to age of the egg. So yeah, so we know on average at 42, normality rates are about 12%, and so on. So that's where you get that age separation from. But of course, it's like being, well, somebody said, well, look, I'm 41 in 11 months, is it suddenly going to drop off at 42? It's just declining all the time, I'm afraid.
mm. And we hear a lot in the world of fertility and Instagram and podcasting and all of this kind of world around this idea that egg quality can be changed or improved.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a difference between egg quality and the ability of that egg to form a chromosomally normal embryo. Okay. Egg quality itself, you can potentially define, if you like, as the ability of that egg to combine with the sperm to form an embryo. Because we can sometimes refer to patients having poor egg quality if that process doesn't work. Now, my experience is that women who are in their 40s have a great chance of producing a blastocyst, great chance of producing an embryo. So in many ways, their egg quality is still good in that it has the ability to, be fertilized and create an embryo. It's the problem with the embryo being chromosomally normal. So I think there are two aspects to this. So when people talk about improving, lifestyle, etc., I think that has a benefit potentially for embryo quality, for the ability of that egg to form a blastocyst. What you can't do, unfortunately, with age, is change the ability of that egg to form a chromosomally normal blastocyst.
Mm.
But there's no, obviously, you've got to get to the blastocyst stage in the first place. So there is something to be said, of course, for having a healthy lifestyle, etc., to at least improve the chances that you'll get to the blastocyst stage, yet alone any stage beyond that. 'Cause if you can't get to that stage, well, you're not going to get any further.
Mm. And I'm always really interested because people always ask me the degree to which that is like how, like, and I can never really get my head around. And I guess what you're saying is you don't know. It can improve the
Yes,
chance of getting to blastocyst, and then it's down to the chromosomes.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, so if you can optimize of that side of it, at least you get to the point of having a blastocyst, at least getting you a chance,
yeah,
of something being there, as opposed to your egg quality being so poor we can't even get to the blastocyst stage. I have to say, most people's egg quality is not that poor.
mm,
And it's not, but it does impact, of course, on outcome for IVF treatment,
mm,
because we need to get to the blastocyst stage to put an embryo back or to screen an embryo for chromosomal abnormalities. So
mm,
you're often, when you're older, I'm afraid, in a bit of a numbers game here,
mm,
because the more embryos you've got, the more likelihood you are to have something that is normal, that's going to
mm,
get you pregnant. And this again, therefore, comes with ovarian reserve. But of course, ovarian reserve is hugely variable between different people. And that, of course, ovarian reserve can be impacted long term by lifestyle factors such as smoking and obesity. So, it's there are lots of things going on here that might
mm,
change one person's chances to another who are both at the age of 40.
mm. So what are your, in terms of like lifestyle? Because
Yeah.
funnily enough, I've done a previous episode today all about Christmas. We've just done an episode on
Ah,
Christmas and kind of like navigating Christmas while you're
yeah.
trying to conceive, because there's always so much shame and guilt and fear
Oh,
around I had a drink
yeah.
at Christmas or I ate a mince pie, and and
Yeah.
my clinic is full of people who are so stressed out and so worried about that kind of side of things that
Yeah.
a lot of the time we talk to people about the degree to which that can impact egg quality, the
Yeah.
degree to which that does impact fertility outcomes, because there's so much confusion, so much grey area. And when there's grey area, there's confusion and then there's anxiety.
Yeah.
So, what are your kind of general pieces of advice that you give to people, whether they're 40 or not?
Yeah. Okay, Hannah. So I always tell people, look, you have to live. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't, you can't lock yourself away and only eat carrots or whatever. My advice is you've got to be able to live. And that means that, of course, you can have an occasional drink. You're not going to do a big binge drinking weekend, of course,
Mm,
but everything in moderation. Because I think that being as de-stressed as possible is good. I think exercise is good. You get great endorphin release from exercise. People often worry, am I exercising too much? Oh my gosh, in moderation, exercise is great. Eating healthily, that doesn't mean to say eating very little, eating normally. I find that most people these days have a pretty healthy lifestyle.
mm,
They eat healthily, they're taking sort of supplements that they want to, and they don't drink excessively when they're trying to get pregnant. That's okay. And a drink over Christmas? Oh, great. I mean, have a drink over Christmas. It is not going to be the cause of you not getting pregnant. It's just not. And I
mm,
see people, change their whole lifestyle and it has made very little impact, because really, when we're talking about lifestyle factors, I'm talking about obesity, smoking, not
mm,
having have an occasional drink,
Mm,
not at all. That's not going to have a big impact. Of course, heavy drinking for men and sperm, I advise against. It's all. I always say, Hannah, it's all about everything in moderation. And you're absolutely right. I think, particularly women, we are incredibly good about beating ourselves up about stuff,
mm,
and we shouldn't. And we really, really shouldn't, because most of these things are unfortunately out of our control, and they really are out of our
mm,
control.
mm,
So yeah. I also
mm.
say to people, don't do something that you'll regret, that you really will beat yourself up about, because
Yeah.
again, don't do that. So be sensible. And if you're somebody who really was going to beat yourself up about drinking, don't do it then. It's easier not to.
Good advice. And what we've seen recently a lot of is lots of people who are older, and I say older in inverted commas,
Yeah.
are more leaning towards doing PGTA testing for
Yeah.
embryos. So
Mm.
what's your opinion on this? Because lots of people come into our clinic and say, should I do it? The HFEA have said there's red lights.
Yeah,
It's really
that's right.
confusing. It's
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
Should I or shouldn't I do it? What would you
Yeah.
say in that
Okay.
situation?
So the benefit of screening embryos really is to try and expedite the time to pregnancy. Of course, if you create 5 embryos and only one of them's normal, well, at some point you'll have that embryo back. So it does not alter the outcome ultimately. What the aim of screening is to say, okay, there are 5 embryos here. We're not going to put them back one at a time, and that's 5 goes, 5 months, etc. We're just going to select the one, whatever, that's going to get you pregnant, or maybe none of them are normal. In which case, you need to get on and do another cycle and create more
Mm,
embryos. So screening is of benefit, really, to try and expedite that time to pregnancy. So I think it is very valuable. It also has the ability, of course, to decrease the potential for miscarriage, because we all know that a miscarriage, one, is emotionally time consuming and physically time consuming. A miscarriage can knock out 3-4 months of in your fertility pathway and journey, that actually when you're older, you just haven't got that time to do that. So benefits: screening, time to pregnancy, and reduction in miscarriage rates. As I say, screening doesn't alter the outcome ultimately, but it can just bring it forward. So I always discuss screening with women who are 40 or over as an option. At the
mm,
end of the day, it's a personal option. Some people feel comfortable with it, other people don't. Some people are worried that we are screening embryos and we say they're abnormal and they're normal. I mean, this is
mm,
the biggest concern people have. Are we not using embryos that are chromosomally normal or have the potential to be a baby? Because we all read in the paper, or read on Google, they said my baby was abnormal, I had it transferred, it's entirely normal. Well, screening has changed over the years significantly.
mm,
So now, screening, I think, is such that we report cases where there's a mixed pattern with normal cells and abnormal cells, mosaicism. And the reporting is so much better. But you still got to feel comfortable with it. And it is important to feel comfortable with it, because if we say that an embryo is abnormal, we will not transfer it. And I know some patients then get very anxious. They really want the abnormal ones transferred. And
mm,
if you're going to be in that position, then screening is absolutely not for you.
mm.
You need to be prepared to take the science on board, accept the science and what we're suggesting. So again, I like screening. I think it's a good option to have that choice. But again, it's for some people and not for others. And
Mm.
it's so, again, personal choice, Hannah, totally.
So why did the HFEA rate it
Ah,
as red light?
yes. Because the HFA have rated it red because it doesn't increase pregnancy rates. Okay.
Right.
So if I'm saying to somebody, "Oh, screen because you're going to increase your pregnancy rate," then I'm lying, because it can't. Okay.
Mm,
So the HFA basically are red lighting it, saying it will not improve pregnancy rates, and they are right. It can't improve pregnancy rates. And most clinics shouldn't be putting it forward as that. It's just time to pregnancy. That's what it's doing. Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's really good to have that cleared up. And we're talking here about we've spoken so far about women over the age of 40, but can we
Yeah.
just touch on men over the age of 40?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again, something that's changed a lot, certainly while I've been working in fertility, is this kind of focus on testing, investigating male fertility
Yeah.
more, and this idea that men do have a decline in their fertility as they get
Yeah.
older. It's obviously not as significant as women, but
Yeah.
there is such a thing that happens with men. So what do you think about all of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's some good evidence to suggest, of course, there is a decline. And hence, of course, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but some years ago, they reduced the age of donors, men who can donate sperm, down to 40 or to below 40. So we do know that there are changes, and we know that, overall, the volume of sperm is lower. We know that the motility declines. We know that there's a potential for increased DNA fragmentation rates. But men are overall fortunate, of course, because spermatogenesis is an ongoing process. They're producing new sperm all the time. Of course, that those rates don't decline, and there's nothing like as in women. So men, of course, can have a baby right till they're till whatever age.
Mm,
But there's no doubt that there's some information out there for the decline. Okay, the big question is, and we know that. That the genetics of that sperm also do change. But overall, and there may be, of course, increased risks of, various illnesses or genetic disorders, but these are small numbers. I mean, really, really, really small numbers. So, I feel more sorry for women than men as they age, that's for sure, because they can do less about it. Men can certainly address more their lifestyle factors, because we know, of course, lifestyle factors have a significant impact for men, because that sperm, again, is being produced all the time. So, nice, rapidly dividing cells, lifestyle factors can improve.
mm,
So, yeah, look, there's no doubt that as men age, there is a decline, but it's just not so significant as in women. And it
mm,
really, really, really isn't at all. So I wouldn't be suggesting to somebody, oh, you need sperm donation.
mm,
Whereas, for women, I'm talking about egg donation, but we're
mm.
never talking about sperm donation based on age of men, for
Yeah.
sure.
So what do you say to people when they're in that deliberation of maybe they're in their 40s, their AMH is lower, or,
Yeah,
let's say it's 4 or below,
yeah,
and they're in that deliberation of, is IVF going to increase my chances? Or do I just carry on? Not just, because we know it's hard just carrying on, but
yeah,
do I continue to try naturally?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I'll ask you that question first. Like, I guess what the question is what's the advantage in the success rates between trying naturally, assuming there's no
Yeah.
issue, there's no underlying issue.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Okay,
would
I'll
you say?
tell you, Hannah. My experience is by the time you hit about 42, the key thing here is IVF is not a treatment for age, and it's not a treatment for age. IVF can assist people, and I think IVF in women who are older, certainly 32, 42 plus, really need a really good ovarian reserve to make IVF a viable option to consider. When you've got very small egg numbers, and as you said, AMH of 4 or below, you're going to get 3 or 4 eggs if your AMH is 3 or 4 in the IVF process. You may end up with one embryo, and at 42, I'm saying, oh, look, that's probably got a 10% chance of being chromosomally normal. You've got to really think, is that £8,000 to £10,000 I'm going to spend on a cycle of IVF? Is it really worth it? Is it going to significantly improve my chances over doing something like super ovulation or
Mm,
insemination? No, I don't think it is.
mm,
And I say, it comes back to IVF is not a treatment for age. And you need to really carefully balance that whether or not that's worth doing, because I don't think the success rate is particularly any higher, particularly when you've got a low ovarian reserve, higher than doing superovulation or insemination, when you can do multiple cycles of that. Of course, you can't screen embryos when you're doing that. And of course, if you get pregnant, there are chances of miscarriage. But my experience over the age of 42, I've got far more pregnancies in women with ovulation induction and insemination than IVF who've got a low ovarian reserve. There's no
Mm.
doubt about it.
And so I guess what you're doing there is you're optimizing a cycle, aren't you? You're
You
ensuring
are.
that somebody is going to ovulate, that it's
Yeah.
going to be a good ovulation,
Uh,
and and why the insemination? Why is that insemination as opposed to going to trying to
Again,
conceive at home, or is that
again,
a choice?
sperm's washed, all the good swimming sperm taken. Quite often, men
Mm,
are in their 40s as well with their wives who are partners who are in their 40s. I think it does offer that additional extra,
mm,
as long as the sperm's okay, to try and really maximize as opposed to just trying that. I think there's that whole thing as well in doing superovulation. That's great because you're trying to just get more than one egg each month to try and up those chances. But I do think people do better with there's a psychological impact on that, but rather than just
mm,
continuing just to try naturally.
yeah.
And I do think it elevates it a little bit more. So I do either superovulation with or without insemination, but I do try and encourage them to do some insemination because it really does absolutely maximize every little aspect of that treatment.
Mm. So that as an alternative to IVF in
Yes,
some cases can be a good option.
it can be because again, for the cost of one IVF treatment, where you may end up with one embryo, you can
Yeah,
do multiple cycles and expose, more of those eggs to sperm to see if we can try and get something that's good that's going to implant.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's worth trying. I wouldn't give up,
Mm,
and I think it's really important that couples feel they've exhausted all aspects of what they want to do because there's no point coming back in 2 years' time when you're 44 going, I think I might like to try this now because, your opportunity then is even less. It's kind of gone. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, because I guess in many cases it's not that you it's just it's waiting. In some ways, I feel like
Yeah.
it's waiting for that one
Yeah.
egg that's
Absolutely, Hannah.
genetically normal, isn't it? But
That's
when that is
right.
going to be is we don't know. We can't. If
That's
only we
right.
knew.
No, yeah, absolutely. But again, of course, we know that as women age, it can take longer to conceive.
Mm,
So we know it can happen, and we know there are lots more natural conception rates in women of all ages of 40 than there are in fertility treatment pregnancy rates. So it's about it's like that the last hurrah. Really try and see if you can get that good one, as opposed
mm,
to doing one cycle of IVF where you may get one for a big amount of money, and
mm,
yeah, you've got to be sensible about it and do the right treatment.
mm. And at what point? Because again, this is a question that comes up in our clinic. Is
Mm,
if you're trying to let's say you're trying to conceive naturally and IVF is not an option, you've decided you're not going to go down that
yeah.
road. At what point do you stop?
Ah,
Because, I've got a
yeah.
number of people that I'm working with at the moment who are between 42 and 44. And the
Yeah.
thing is that as women, obviously, we go on and have menstrual cycles up into our, late 40s, early
Yes.
50s.
Yep.
But obviously, and you're on that sort of psychological, roller coaster of,
Yep.
well, I'm still ovulating, I'm still having periods, so there is
Yep.
always a chance of conception.
That's right.
How do you know when to stop?
Yeah. I I guess one way of looking at it is one. Are you have to ask yourself, are you somebody that would accept egg donation as a treatment option? So that's the
Yeah.
first thing. If you are, really, and you've been trying for about a year at 42, still not conceiving, you are willing to accept egg donation, I would move on to egg donation because that's
Mm,
going to give you a really realistic chance of having a baby. If egg donation is not an option for you, it's not something that you would consider, I would certainly entertain in fertility treatment doing up to 6 cycles of insemination. If I wasn't pregnant after that, I would continue trying naturally, but I wouldn't pursue any further fertility treatment. I think six
mm,
months is a really good go, and then just continue to try naturally
mm. Okay.
because you've got nothing else to do. If you're not going to have egg donation, you're not going to give up because you never know it might happen.
Mm,
But I would give it a good go with some fertility treatment before that point. Yeah.
mm. And so I guess these are conversations because it's
Yeah.
everybody goes through different paths, don't they? Of what I
They
see a lot
do.
is people often want to try IVF to see because obviously you never
Yeah.
really know till you try it. And
Yeah.
and then it's often, well, what else is out there? And then it's
Yes.
kind of you look at the statistics behind egg donation compared to the
Yes.
statistics we've just discussed at the beginning of the program. I mean,
Yeah.
the difference is phenomenal.
Yes, it is. And again, you said that exactly right, Hannah. Some people feel that they need to do various things, and that is important because again, you don't want to have any regrets. You don't want to look back and go, "Oh, I just wish I'd tried just once."
Mm,
And we will always, and I will always give people a chance. And we
mm,
will absolutely try our absolute best on that chance if they want to
mm,
do IVF to maximize the outcome for them. Of course, we will. And it is important if people really feel that they want to try, no matter what I say, the outcome might be. I think it's important they try. Because, of
mm,
course, not forgetting, and I'll say to people, look, if this is what you want to do, we can try. You can stop halfway through. We can
mm,
try the stimulation. If we've got one follicle and it's not looking great, we can just trigger it. You can ovulate. We can do an insemination. You don't have to stick to that pathway. We can be extremely flexible in
mm.
that treatment so
Yeah.
that you're not making that massive commitment and there's one egg and you, etc. And you're just going to do a one egg collection. So it's trying, I think, patients, I think, need to do what they feel is right for them, but making that decision with information, with good information,
Yeah.
that's the key thing.
Do you have a cutoff? Do you have cutoffs in your clinic or
No,
don't?
so we don't.
Okay.
We don't have a cutoff.
Yeah.
And we don't have a cutoff on the basis that if somebody really wants to try, we will try for them.
Mm,
I say as long as it's well documented that they know what the chances are, etc., etc. Because of course people always go, "Oh, I know so and she was 48 and she conceived with IVF." And there are those sort of cases around, but it comes back, yeah, we will always try.
yeah.
And they say we'll try very sensibly, and we will try our maximum. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. If people want to get in contact, do you do like open evenings
We
or
do
yeah.
monthly open evenings, and people can either call into the clinic here at Aria and Hannah, or they can go via the website and book those. And I think it's really key if people are looking to have treatment. This is
Mm,
treatment is costly. It's an emotional process. Really important that people select and choose the clinic they want to go to, and
mm,
therefore open evenings are the best way of doing that. Go to the clinic, have a look, see if you get a good feel for it. We don't do any formal presentations. So what we do is we tend to just really discuss what we're doing on in the clinic and try and encourage sort of an open forum of questions. So hopefully that
mm.
we could, people can get the maximum out of that. But also, of course, you get a tour of the clinic, etc. But to open evenings are one of the best things to go to, no doubt about it.
And that's free. Anyone can just book on and go
Yeah,
to that.
they can indeed. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. That's really good because I always say to people, go and do research. Don't always go
Oh,
to the
yeah.
nearest one. It's good to research, it's good to investigate and go and meet and
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely, Hannah. I mean, it's really important.
Yeah. Great. Well, Amanda, thank you so much. I know how busy you are. So thank you so much for your time. That's really, really helpful. And you know what I'm going to take away with me is the ovulation induction
Yeah.
insemination, because that is
Yeah.
something I'm going to have a discussion with a number of people I'm working with. So that's really helpful for me. So thank you.
Good. My pleasure. Always, Hannah.
If you've enjoyed listening to this and want to find out more, then come and join my free community in Facebook. We have loads of resources. You can catch up on all our previous webinars and be the first to know about forthcoming events. To sign up, just follow the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to work one-to-one with myself or one of the team, then please see our website, hannahpern.com, where you can book in directly or organise a discovery call to find out how we can support your fertility and your reproductive health.